Welcome everybody to the Checked In podcast. We got Michael and Zac here back for another episode. This episode, we thought we'd be talking about the quantum hypnosis healing technique. That's a technique that was founded by Dolores. We touched on this on the last episode with Pat. We thought we'd go in a little deeper this time, give you guys kind of like a look at what it actually is. Very interesting topic. We got a video of Dolores talking about it, so we're going to show you guys that video right now.
Well, as part of this technique, the very first thing that you do is take the client into a past life, because a lot of the answers will be found there, because some of the answers in this life go back to other lives, whether they're illness, their phobias, or whatever. So the past life, though, is the beginning. It's the tip of the iceberg, because we go way beyond that. But going into a past life is very simple, very easy. And you do it with the hypnosis. But I never know where the person is going to go. That's the fun of this, because it's always out of the blue. We never know the connection. But they will always go to the most appropriate time and place to explain what's happening in their life right now. And they find their answers that way. Well, as part of...
So yeah, I was looking at a few videos of her and everything, and she kind of broke down how that works. Basically the mindset she puts the client, I guess, in is the same mental state that you're in right before you go to sleep, right before you wake up, right after you go to sleep, right before you wake up, in that like almost conscious but not conscious state. And in that state, you can actually recollect like things that happened in your past, and then you can actually, she's had hundreds of thousands of people talking about what happened in the previous life, what happened in, multiple lives and all of that. It's wild.
Yeah, that is crazy, bro. Like, I was watching a few videos on it too, like, and it was nuts to see, like, people are like emotionally like reacting as if they're in that time, in that same like body again. You know what I mean? Like, they're looking at things like we're looking at everything right now, which is crazy. So like I think that's like even more ridiculous, because it's just like, dude, like how the heck, like,
right?
Could you imagine though, like this one guy I was watching, Oprah Winfrey had this doctor on there. I forget his name. I think it was Dr. Dr. Sheen, or like Schein or something like that. I forget his name. I'll look it up real quick. But basically, like, he's done this a million times with a bunch of different like people, clients and stuff like that. And this one guy was like, he had issues with his sister, and in one past life, I guess he saw her like getting abused and he couldn't help her, and somebody like clunked him over the head, and like he was like passed out and like couldn't help her at all. And I guess that's why him and his sister have an issue now in like current time, because I guess back then, like, he was supposed to help her, and at the time it wasn't his sister though. It was just a complete other person, I guess he knew, but it wasn't his sister at the time. And then now, I guess when they got in this life, there's his sister and him are like, you know, brother and sister in the same house. They grew up, and then like once they hit like a certain age, they just had like this weird hostility. She had like this weird hostility towards him, and he always felt like he was like wrong, you know, like he did something wrong to her, but like he never really questioned why she had an issue with him. He kind of just accepted it. Most people would have just been like, dude, what's your issue with me? Like, why are you? But he was never like that with her, but he never knew why he was never like that. And like going through this, like, I guess therapy or whatever, helped them understand like, oh shit, she's pissed at me from like maybe like 3 lifetimes ago when I was supposed to help her and I couldn't help her. So like, that's crazy. I think like, honestly, it kind of makes me want to try to see like,
dude, you and me both. I literally looked into it.
I'm like, dude, what have I been through? Or maybe I'm just a firstborn or whatever they call it. Like, maybe I'm just like a really, I guess they call them like beginner souls and advanced souls or whatever. So like, he was a super advanced soul. like where he's had multiple lifetimes before.
Yeah.
But I just kind of like want to see like what am I, like what was I before? Like
Right.
what if you're like a fly, like just flying around and you just see like through fly eyes and you just get swatted and you're just like, oh,
You're in a
like I
past
don't know,
life,
like
fly flying.
yeah, for like 2 minutes of your life, you're a fly.
Would that be
Nah,
crazy? You
but
think you're gonna go back on some deep shit and you just fly?
yeah, I just hear buzzing. I hear a lot of buzzing.
Yeah, I was
I'm looking.
same thing. I was looking at a video of somebody who went through the same like past life regression, and her biggest thing was she was giving up her eggs for other
Yeah,
people to be able to have children, and she did
right.
like religiously, like monthly or like every 2 months she would do it, and she was wondering
Hmm.
why she feels so compelled to do it. Then she goes
Right.
into this trance where she's going through this hypnotherapy.
Hmm.
She actually goes back to I want to say 1840s, and
Mm.
she's a guy. Um, and this guy is actually, he has a wife, 3 kids, and he was an assistant to the captain on a ship in England, and he was
Mm.
part of the slave trade, because the slave trade would go from England to Africa, hit on like somewhere in South America up to like Florida area, and then
Hmm.
back to England. So he was
Right,
saying,
right, right.
she was saying, well, he was saying how they were away from their family for months at a time and then
Yeah.
ended up dying on this ship. The
Hmm.
person who put her through this hypnotherapy, what he
Hmm.
does is he fact checks what they say to see the
Mm.
validity of it. And he went and he
Hmm.
fact checked, and this person was an actual person who actually lived in this town in England with
Yeah.
he found a birth certificate, a marriage certificate, the death certificate of this person.
Wow.
And then he goes, let's go a little further back. Ends up going further back, and she's in Jerusalem as a woman,
Mm.
and she's explaining what she's seeing and everything like that. And then she's talking about how she's an outcast in Jerusalem, and he's like,
Mm.
why is that? What is it? And she's like, I can't have children. And the reason why that was such a big deal in Jerusalem is because if you're a woman, you aren't able to own land. So you having children, you having boys, is the only way that land can get
Mm.
passed down through the family. So if you don't have
Word.
the ability to get pregnant, you're useless in society. So she was talking
Yeah.
about how she would like pray, and he's like, let me hear some of these prayers. And she started praying in Arabic
Bruh.
on
That's
video,
crazy.
praying in Arabic, and said that her name was like, I forgot the name, but the name
Hmm.
in Arabic meant outcast. That was her
Wow.
nickname, was outcast, but in Arabic. So she's speaking
Dang.
Arabic, giving Arabic names, and then he took a picture of Jerusalem, like a painting or some shit, and said like, "Is this?" Or no, it was an old picture of just Jerusalem, and
Yeah.
said, "Is this what you were seeing?" And had it like colored and all that. And she's like, "Those hills and all of that, the architecture, everything, that's exactly what I was seeing." And like knew it. She had like an emotional like explosion. She started like tearing up and crying. She's like, that's what I saw. And same as you,
Dang.
when she was back in that guy's body, when he
Yeah.
was dying on the ship, he was drowning.
Hmm.
And in this past life regression, she was technically drowning. So she was actually going through the motions of drowning. Like she was like, she couldn't breathe. And he like didn't intervene because like, I'm not going to touch it. Obviously they're not
Yeah.
dying, but she's like having a hard time breathing. And then when he finally died, she went back to like being just normal laying there. And then he pushed her
Yeah.
back to Jerusalem. But like same thing, he fact checked all the ship, and it was all legitimate stuff, like birth certificates, death certificates, marriage certificates, children, like everything
Dude.
was legitimate. And it's like, before we had this conversation with Pat, I had no idea this even existed. And now like
Yeah.
looking into Dolores Cannon and stuff, like it's real shit. And like to your point, I was watching a video of Dolores Cannon. She's like, the kids now, like people now born like in the 90s and later,
Hmm.
those are the ones that are vibrationally moving at a much faster pace. So the reason why there's like so many older people who are like trying to commit suicide, or like they can't keep up with the times vibrationally. They just cannot do it. Whereas me and you were born in a later time. So we're part of that group of people who are vibrationally higher by default. And then to move away from that, that's a pretty cool feeling. To get away from that, you can't. You have to try to move from that. And she's talking about like how we're part of the new earth, is what she calls it. And basically it's where the earth is going to ascend to a higher dimension, and it's vibrationally speaking. So like there's going to be the higher dimension earth, and those with the higher vibration, with love, with understanding, with peace, those are the ones that are going to go to that higher vibrational earth. And then the negative ones stay at this one. And it's I've watched so much. It's crazy, bro. It's crazy.
So is it like a different dimension that, like, what is the higher vibrational earth? Like, what is that?
It's I didn't look too deep into it, but what I understood from the videos that I did watch is basically it's a different dimension. I mean, everything's like 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D. The higher dimension is just that. It's 4D, 5D, whatever. But it's basically like a group of people who are vibrationally on a higher level, who understand peace and love is what it is. And that's what everything is about. And everything comes back to peace and love. And that mindset isn't typical. Like, I know when I speak to like my father, for example, my father is very cynical. He's very negative. He's like I was actually having a conversation with my father and my mother about this not too long after our podcast with Pat. I was like talking about how all this stuff works. And he's like, I was saying how I want to be genuinely happy with what I'm doing. And I don't want to just be going to work to go to work and make money and do the 9 to 5. I don't want to do that, And my dad's like, no, that's how life is. It beats you up and spits you out, and you just got to deal with it and make your money and come back home. And it's like, that's a very old school way to think. And that's just because by default, he was in that younger group or that older group who wasn't able to come around during this time when we have social media and internet, where we can see that like thinking this way isn't crazy. You know what I'm saying? Like,
for sure.
Like my dad's big in a church. Like, you were there that one time that he was preaching God, all about God. And he's very God-fearing, church-oriented, all of that. And he still has that negative outlook on life. And I feel like me and you and people our age, like, we just have the ability to see the other side of it, the non-cynical, non-negative side. And that's where we ascend to another dimension. We ascend to a better life. So that's just because we have the ability to educate ourselves on that at a younger age, instead of trying to tell somebody who's in their like 50s about this, you're talking to a wall.
They're way too systemized and stuff like that. But I think what you're referring to is what a lot of people are talking about or have been talking about for like the past few years, is just like our generation being the more woke, or they call it like the indigo generation. And like why a lot of older people are like downplaying or kind of like bashing us being millennials, and like kind of making the term millennial like a derogatory term and stuff like that, or like using it like millennials. Exactly. I mean, they don't understand like what we are. And then also they're so systemized into like, because they were like, you got to think like the baby boomer generation is that generation that started when everything was pretty much like, you go 9 to 5, you do you go to work, you go home, you spend whatever time you can with the kids, and you go to sleep, get back up, go to work, clock in, clock out type of mentality. And then we're all like, no, we're the more liberating, like, no, I should be able to go to work. I should be able to either have things work for me. I should learn how to create more passive, different types of income streams where I have more time to focus my mind on what really matters and just have other things work for me. Or, people like, I feel like people now are like that. I feel like that's why there's so much dissatisfaction and like the I don't know, the hunger for like instant gratification in our generation is because like we want things that happen because we know what's happening now shouldn't be happening the way it is. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's like we're looking out things outside of the norm or outside of whatever system was in place. And I feel like they're questioning why we're doing it. And they don't understand, like, dude, we were like destined to be this way. Like we were all meant to be on this type of like mindset, you know, going forward in life and questioning why this, why that, how can we change this, how can we change that. Like when our generation gets into like the leadership roles and like politics and like there's where it's like most of the age group or the average age group is our age group for our generation. That's when I feel like we'll start seeing everything spin into that type of, you know, changing the system. There is going to be a way totally different setup for everything. Like everything's going to be completely different. I think it's going to be pretty dope to see that too, because like I've been waiting. Like we're only in our 20s, mid 20s. Yeah. So like really, even for one of us to be president, we still have to wait another 10 years maybe. You got to be like 35
I think
or
so,
33, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we got to wait like maybe 10, maybe 15 more years to just to qualify as a president. You know what I mean? Just to have that bare minimum age to become a president. And I feel like when that happens, though, I mean, like everything's gonna be completely different. Like it's gonna shake everything that ever happened. And I don't know. I'm kind of stoked for it. Like I'm excited. I want to see like how things change. You know, unless you know they elect somebody that's really systemized. But maybe I don't know. We'll never know what happens when that happens, though. But back to the regression thing, I think that whole experience, like the doctor from Oprah was Dr. Brian Weiss. Brian Weiss. So it's like Weiss, Brian Weiss. But he basically I watched a few videos, but he won't let them go through like the traumatizing like experience. He'll kind of be like, all right, I'm gonna stop it here because you're not feeling good. So he does like this weird like forehead tap. I don't know what it does, but it's part of like the hypnosis. And then basically he'd be like, all right, you're out of the body, but you're above it looking at the situation. What do you see? You know what I mean? So he didn't let them actually go through like the traumatizing part, but he kind of allowed them to watch it and see what was going on, you know? Yeah. And like I said, the one guy that had issue with his sister, he also saw himself, he was a World War II pilot. And he was like, you know, he was like, I don't know who to shoot. Cause he's like in the dark. He's like, it's dark and it's nighttime. And like somebody shot his plane down and he ended up crashing. And, you know, he was like, I just feel really crushed. My head, it feels swollen. Like I'm crushed. My chest is crushed. There's like something in my chest. Like, I don't know what it is. It's like, everything's pressed down. He's like, yeah, you crashed, didn't you? He's like, yeah, I crashed because I just didn't know who to shoot. And then he started crying because he was like, I would have shot somebody if I knew who to shoot. And he was like, are you alone in the plane? He's like, no, it's me and him. And yeah, that's crazy. I wonder in that moment if he actually like regressed and was experiencing like from the future side of like him in the present and then him in the back and the guy in the plane is probably like, what the hell is he talking about? You know what I mean? Like, what if it's like that? What if when you regress, you're able to, like, you're speaking the same exact words at the same exact time? Yeah, that'd be crazy. Like, what if that's really time travel and like nobody told us that was time travel? You know what I mean? Like, what if you can regress like in the Matrix? Like, what if you can go back and like control the avatar, control the person? Yeah. And like maybe change a thing or two. Like it kind of reminds me of the movie Deja Vu. It's not exactly the same idea, but like Denzel Washington was like the main character in that movie. He was able to go back in time. There was two of him in that time though. But I think he was able to no, my fault. He went back in that time and replaced himself. Because I guess what he was able to do was, I guess they had to leave a note on like the desk or something like that. And then he like replaced himself in the situation. His other self was still there, but his other self went like on a different, he was playing a detective in the movie. So that his other self went on like a different case. And then he took that case and moved forward with it. And then as he's moving forward in it, like he's getting like crazy deja vu because he's already been there before, but he ended up dying in the first half of the movie. And then the second half, they were able to like bring him back and then push him back in that time. So like it was some crazy like time travel crap. But it just reminds me like what if we can like time travel, go back into like whoever that body was and maybe like switch a situation around. Maybe that's time traveling and not like what we think it is, where we just gotta like warp some like, pull in physics and like go through
Right.
like some wormhole and then go back in time, and like that's crazy. Like
No, yeah.
yeah.
I was actually a while ago, I was looking into, so there was the CIA declassified documents that
Mhm.
talked about how to time travel. Like, like
Mhm.
literally, you can look up CIA declassified time travel, and there's actually on Google an entire step-by-step document on how to do it, and it is essentially this. You do it to yourself, but it's the same thing. It's almost like it's the equivalent, explained by other people, it's the equivalent of lucid dreaming. Have you ever heard of that?
Mhm. That's
So
kind of what this reminded me of too. When he said, "Now you're out of the body, you're above looking over." I thought it. I mean, I'm pretty sure it uses the same thing. I'm pretty sure that's why a lot of people DMT, because they can then lucid dream a lot better, but they're not like in that sleep state where they're still like kind of semi-conscious, but they're like, they're not. Yeah, it's like in the Matrix. I mean, the Matrix is probably like the best idea to kind of compare it to, is like where you're not like sleep, but you're just like kind of in like a different type of state. And basically when you're in a
just
different state, yeah, the consciousness is there, but your body's not conscious,
yeah.
but the other body, yeah. So that is actually pretty crazy. And then like you can like, what if you can time travel back to like, you know, a very important time in history, and like the person that you are or were back then, you can now change and go around and do that. Like, especially if you're like really wealthy in one of those other like timelines, you can probably make a serious change like in the world. Or like if you were like a spy, that'd be dope if like you were a
Oh
spy
yeah.
back then and you could just like go and change like history and then like come back and be like, oh crap. And then like I don't know if it'll only change. That's the only thing, like, because that's whole like theory of time travel, right? You'd only change that timeline. You want to change your timeline, or like
Right.
sometimes if you change that timeline, you could change your timeline in the future. But I don't know. That's a pretty dope like concept. I wanna try it. I wanna try it. I wanna like meet like a retired CIA agent and be like, yo, bruh, help me do this,
Let's do this.
bro. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's do this, bro. Like for real. I'll freaking
I was thinking about the DMT thing because I've actually been trying to make myself go into this state since we've talked about it, since I've been looking it up. Um,
yeah.
and I've come to the point where I'm seeing like very trippy shit, but I'm not
Yeah.
seeing like when I'm getting to the point where I'm about to like fall asleep almost, I
Hmm.
start having vivid, like trippy, weird visions of just
Hmm.
like, stuff you can't explain. Like I remember yesterday I was doing it and I saw like a woman with a foot for her, but like a leg for her body, and like the white and black, the
Hmm.
hypnosis white and black circle. I was seeing
Yeah.
that as a background, and it was crazy. So I feel like it's only a matter of time before I'm able to like break through like that. But I feel like
Yeah.
DMT, I feel like the reason why that works so well is because DMT is your dream hormone, right? So
Yeah.
I feel like the reason why that works is because it's so quick. Like once you
Hmm.
take 3 hits to blast off. So once you take
Yeah.
that third, you're already fighting to stay awake the whole time anyway. Once you take
Yeah.
the third hit, you can't stay awake. But since it's such a harsh like influx of DMT into your system, but you're still fighting to stay awake, you're actually conscious, but your body
Yeah.
can't be conscious. So you're going
Uh
straight to that like the furthest point because you've already
yeah.
taken in so much of that dream hormone, but
Yeah.
you're fighting to stay conscious because it's a scary experience. Like
Yeah.
everyone that I talk to that's done DMT, they don't say like,
Hmm.
oh, it was great, it was fantastic. It's like, oh, it was
Yeah.
crazy. So
Yeah.
you're not gonna take some drug that's fucking crazy by everyone that's
Hmm.
taking it and just be like, I'm chilling. Like, no shot.
Yeah, honestly, like the few people that I've met that have done DMT or like some form of it, maybe like in shrooms or something,
Yeah.
they've always seen their first couple of times. It's always been like a wild experience. And then like they couldn't explain why they were seeing certain things. and then they're like third or fourth or maybe their fifth time doing it or their last time doing it, they seen like they were able to get like some type of inner peace because they've seen like how they, I don't know, they just have like everybody's story is so unique, but it all kind of has like the same idea. Like every question that they needed to be answered in their life or whatever they were going through or whatever like past trauma they've had or something like that, it was able to get solved in that trip or whatever, if you want to call it a trip.
Yeah.
But like then they were like, okay, so I understand everything, why things happen from here to there. And now I can have some sort of peace to kind of feel very leveled about life. And now I just, and then they're always usually really lost afterwards and kind of like don't know what to do next in their life, or they are like really determined on going and doing something. I mean, a lot of people have been successful after it. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't ever recommend like psychedelics unless you like,
Right.
you know, you're like completely monitored by like a bunch of people. Like, I don't know, maybe your friend's a paramedic, have them in the room with you. But yeah, because that, I mean, some people died doing like crap like that. I'm not off shrooms, but like, you know, DMT in general.
Oh yeah.
A lot of musicians or creatives in history have done it, and the reason why they're in history is because they've messed around with it,
Yeah.
and it's actually helped them to be more open-minded or more creative, I should say. So yeah, I don't know. It's just all like yeah, it's all like crazy to me that your brain is just so like strong and like electric, you know what I mean? Like there's like so much stuff going on, and like, you know, I think that's probably the reason why we only use 10% of our brain, because it's probably all that we can handle consciously, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like what else are, I mean, outside of like our brain checking everything in us and like making sure, you know, the food we eat is distributed the right way or whatever. I mean, like, or letting us know if we're sick or like, you know, stuff like that, like regular sensory stuff. But I think it's just like the other 90% is always a mystery. And I believe DMT allows you to use more than the 10%, maybe just slightly more. But I know it does have that type of uh effect on the brain where you can eventually like
Your
use a
brain,
little bit more of it.
your brain on DMT, because they've actually done like CAT scans on people who were going through it. Your brain on
Mhm.
so your brain typically, the human brain normally is firing like it's firing, but it's not firing all over the brain. It's firing in specific spots depending on what you're doing. So I'm talking right now. So that's the part of my brain
Yeah.
that's sparking up right now. I'm moving my hands.
Hmm.
That part of the brain is sparking up right now. When you're on DMT laying there, your
Hmm.
entire brain is sparking nonstop. So it, like you
Mm.
said, I mean,
Yeah.
you're using well over 10%. Like it looks like if you look at a CAT scan video of somebody who's on DMT, their brain, it looks like 100%. It could be just like surface level 100%, but the entire
Yeah.
thing is lighting the fuck up. Like it looks like one of those, those little the electric shock balls where it's like it's a ball with the electric going all over and you touch it and it all goes to your finger. It,
Oh yeah,
it looks like one of those. It's not being touched. It's just all over the place, sparking up.
yeah, that's crazy, bro. And I wonder, like they said, another thing too is like uh trauma, or like trauma is a big thing that's passed down hereditarily through like, you know, genetics and stuff like that. So like
Yeah.
if, you know, if you're, you know, I wonder maybe if maybe we could just see like our ancestors, like maybe we're not really regressing to our personal, like maybe like our soul's past life, but maybe we're just regressing to like different ancestors and their trauma. Because every time I heard a regression story or witnessed like a regression hypnosis treatment or a therapy session or whatever, it's always like some really traumatic type of thing.
Yeah.
Rarely is it ever like something kind of positive. I've only seen a couple out of like the maybe the 40 or 50 like, you know, therapy videos I watched today. I've only seen a few that were like really happy, you know, sentimental moments, and like they were like they're happy to experience that. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe we're just tapping into our ancestors, like um, you know, traumatic experience, and maybe because it hasn't been settled, it's been like passed down
Yeah.
to where finally something settles. I mean, I've always heard that you know, what you do affects your kids and your kids' kids. You know what I mean? No
Yeah.
matter what it is, or the type of person you are, the things you carry on in life with burdens or, you know, great things. If you're a great person, you know, that's going to help bless your kids in the future. But
Right.
maybe that's what the blessing or the curse is the trauma or the great experience that you pass down.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why we should, or we are going to be that generation that has mostly love and stuff like that, is because maybe that's what we need to pass down for the rest of our generations, you know, genetically, to like succeed or to be in a better state. It's crazy. I seen a study earlier this month that the generation now that's in school right now, I don't know what generation they call it. Maybe it's Generation Z, I believe. The Generation Z kids are all like really messed up in the head as far as like they're all like really have a lot of chronic depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of, you know, those really negative mental illnesses and stuff like that. So I think like maybe that's just the output, because you got to think like a lot of those kids' grandparents were in wars. We've been through a lot of wars worldwide. There's been a lot of different traumas and, you know, uh, yeah, I don't know, man, like everything like from wars to just terrorist attacks to, you know, revolutions in countries or like civil wars and like, yeah, political stuff, a lot of, you know, civil rights movements. There's a lot of people that, you know, generationally stuff has been passed down through trauma if you listen to the science about everything.
Yeah.
So I mean, maybe that's what they're experiencing. Maybe that's what their you know, passed down traits are coming from, is just that last trauma that, you know, has been passed down before, you know, they were, you know, either while their grandparents were like pregnant or, you know, while they're before or right around that time that they were, you know, conceiving their parents, or maybe their great parents, you know, conceiving their you know, their grandparents. But yeah, that's bananas. Like, I don't know. I seen that study, and I think that that could be the link to the regression, or maybe the regression is some type of like reincarnation idea.
Yeah,
Um,
100%.
yeah. I just want to thank everybody for watching our podcast. We really appreciate the support. Share it with somebody. Subscribe to our channels, like our social media posts. Follow us on social media at the Checked In Podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can look it up at, it's just Checked In. And, you know, turn on the post bell notifications, all that stuff. We appreciate it. Have a good one. And let us know in the comments what you really think it is. Do you think it's, you know, maybe like a past life reincarnation that we can tap into? Or is it maybe like an ancestral traumatic experience that's been passed through our neural waves? So yeah, let us know in the comments. Let us know what you think. Have you been through this regression phase? Have you had maybe like a dream that stuck out to you really crazy and you think it was something from the past? Or have you experienced time travel? We don't know. Let us know in the comments. We appreciate you. As always, stay checked in.